This is Tom Fox, and welcome to a new season of Adventures in Compliance. This season, we're going to take up the stories from the collection entitled His Last Foe, some reminiscences of Sherlock Holmes, which is a 1917 collection of previously published Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle, including the titular short story, His Last Foe. The War Service of Sherlock Holmes. The collection's first edition adjusts the anthology subtitle to some later remembrances of Holmes. All of the editions contain a preface from Dr. Watson, which we will read in a little bit. The book itself for the collection was published by John Murray in October 1917, in the U.S. by George R. Dorr in the same year. The collection contains The Adventure of the Cardboard Box, which was included in the American first edition of the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, but dropped later. 6 of the stories were published in the Strand between 1608 and December 19. His final story, His Last Foe, The War Service of Sherlock Holmes, is an epilogue about Holmes' war service and was first published in Collier's on September 22nd, 1917, one book before the book's premiere. There are some great stories in here, and I know you will enjoy them. And I hope you will enjoy this season of Adventures in Compliance really as much as I've enjoyed reading the stories. If you've enjoyed this series or enjoy Sherlock Holmes, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever great podcasts are listened to. Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Today, we pick up the Bruce Partington Plans, which appeared in the Strand magazine on December 8th, 1908. We're going to have a quick word from our network sponsor, Ethico, then we'll be right back.
In the intricate world of ethics and compliance, each second is precious, and slow case closures are more than just delays, they're missed opportunities. Enter Ethico. Our solution revolutionizes case management, cutting case closure times in half and turning every challenge into a chance for improvement. Imagine a workspace where efficiency and compliance coexist harmoniously. Don't just dream of faster resolutions, make it your reality. Visit ethico.com/CPN today to book a demo and dive into our exclusive white paper by Tom Fox, 2023, The Year in Compliance. Empower your team with the tools they deserve.
And now, the adventure of the Bruce Partington Plans. Amid all of the references to the London Underground that can be either discovered or inferred from the Sherlock Holmes stories, the best known of all Holmes' subterranean investigations was the one which took him along the train tracks between the Gloucester Road and Aldgate, not to be confused with Aldergate. No pleasure jaunts were these, however, no early morning commute. Rather, he was tracing the journey taken days earlier by the luckless corpse of Arthur Cadogan West, a clerk at the Royal Arsenal in Woolwich, across the river in South London. The mystery opens at Aldgate. A station opened in 1876, and by the time Doyle had come to write The Adventure of the Bruce Partington Plans, one that afforded a straight shot from Richmond in the west to Tower Hill in the east. The corpse could have been joined the train at any point along that route. The body was found at 6 on the morning of Tuesday, Watson explained. It was lying wide of the metals upon the left hand of the track as one goes eastward, at a point close to the station where the line emerges from the tunnel under which it runs. There was no train ticket in the corpse's pocket, suggesting he had not entered the underground network through any conventional or legitimate means. There was no blood on the scene, suggesting that his head must have been bashed in someplace else. And there was no one who could tell how the body, alive or dead, came to be deposited on the tracks or near the tracks. Regardless of whether or not the case was solved, poor Arthur's remains are at the heart of one of the most alluring and atmospheric of Holmes' latter-day mysteries. All the more since he had been alive, he would have seen the London Underground from a vantage point that few people could have managed from atop the train. How did he get there? There are many peculiarities of the underground system and the network's habit of rising out of the ground to run in open air is one of its most charming. Unless, however, you happen to live in one of the houses that actually border these tracks, which around the city are many. These include this one on the Cromwell Road, hard by the Gloucester Square station and still visible from the tracks today, from which it would have taken a matter of moments to move a body from a window ledge to the roof of a train as it waited outside the signal from the station itself. The house Holmes isolates and the one near the mystery is solved. At the other end, the body's sudden fall from its lofty perch, that dense concentration of points just outside of Aldgate, bore sole responsibility for that. The underground had indeed starred in many stories by many authors, but rarely has it played such a hands-on role in the action. As for the story, it's another one of Holmes' missing secrets tales. The titular plans are those of a top-secret submarine, stolen and only partially recovered, as 7 of the 10 pages of the submarine are found on Cadogan West's body. Sadly, it is those 3 missing pages which are the most important ones. From these, one of Britain's many international enemies could discover the means to build its own submarine. The obvious conclusion is that Cadogan West stole the plans intending to sell them, and then either fell or was pushed from a train. Holmes disproves that as he sorts out the rest of the mystery. Far from being a treacherous dog, Cadogan West was actually a national hero, a bold lad who tried to recover the stolen plans from a foreign agent who had snatched them in the first place and who was murdered for his efforts. With all that sorted out, now the authorities could get on with tracking down the real criminal. Today, I would like to look at the forensic investigative techniques from the adventures of the Bruce Partington Plans and consider how compliance professionals can adopt them for compliance-related investigations or internal investigations. Number 1, physical evidence analysis. Holmes carefully examines the crime scene and collects physical clues such as footprints, fingerprints, cigarette butts, and disturbances in the dust. Compliance professionals can apply similar methods to analyzing physical evidence at the scene of a suspected policy violation or security incident, looking for tracings, markings, or other indicators that might provide valuable insight. 2, deductive reasoning. Holmes uses his keen observation skills and logical deduction to piece together the sequence of events and identify the perpetrator. Compliance professionals can cultivate similar analytic abilities to examine evidence, identify patterns, and draw logical conclusions during investigations. 3, financial transaction tracing. In this story, Holmes traces the financial transactions of the individuals involved to uncover their connections and motives. Compliance professionals can adopt this approach to investigate potential fraud, embezzlement, and other financial irregularities by analyzing bank records, payment logs, and other financial data. Number 4, witness interviews. Holmes conducts thorough interviews with witnesses to gather information and corroborate his theories. Compliance professionals can leverage this technique to interview employees, customers, and other relevant stakeholders to gather information during an investigation. 5, crime scene reconstruction. I admit this is not something compliance professionals often think of, but as Holmes reconstructs the sequence of events leading up to the crime by carefully analyzing the physical evidence and witness statements, compliance professionals can apply similar methodologies to reconstruct a timeline and circumstances surrounding a policy violation or corruption incident. By adopting and adapting these forensic evidence investigation techniques, compliance professionals can enhance their ability to conduct thorough and effective investigations, gather reliable evidence, and make informed decisions to address compliance-related issues within their organization. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this first short story from the newest season in Adventures in Compliance, where we look at Sherlock Holmes' The Last Bow. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review wherever great podcasts are listened to. I also hope that you will take the opportunity to review some of your favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. And if you'd like to talk about them or talk about the role of Holmes and compliance, I'd love to have a podcast with you. So reach out to me at tfoxlaw.com. The award-winning Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. I hope you'll join us again next week in Adventures in Compliance, where we take up the adventure of the Devil's Foot. Thanks so much for listening. We look forward to visiting with you again.